Okay, I'll start this morning by just officially welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung. This is our group learning program, and each week we study the teachings of the Buddha. And today we're studying Volume 1, Chapter 3 of this book series that I share. In this group learning program, we study over a 7-month period, and we go chapter by chapter each Sunday. And then on Wednesdays, I teach also teachings on meditation or chanting or various things for students. I teach here at the temple, and I also live stream online this class, and then there's a class in the evening on Sunday and Wednesday as well. So no matter where you are in the world, there should be a class for you, either at 9 a.m. Thai time or 9 p.m. Thai time on Sunday, Wednesday, and we even teach on Saturday too. That's a different program. But today's topic, Chapter 3, is titled Enlightenment. What is enlightenment? This is where you're going to be able to learn and understand what enlightenment is, because this is the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha, is getting to this enlightened mental state. So I'm going to be teaching you guys that after we do our meditation together. We start with a meditation to be able to help you guys learn meditation and practice meditation. So the meditation that we start with is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is the primary form of meditation that the Buddha taught in addition to other meditations. What the meditation is to train your mind, to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and to cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So with breathing mindfulness meditation, we're cultivating mindfulness or awareness of mind, cultivating concentration. These are two important qualities in your day-to-day life, that you have awareness of your mind and you have concentration or focus or clarity of mind. And then you're also going to be training to let go, so that the mind can easily let go, because what's causing the mind to be angry and frustrated and sad and all these other discontent feelings is that it's holding on and holding on and holding on. So what I'm going to do is guide you guys in a meditation where we can be focusing on the breath, and then anytime the mind moves off the breath, you can cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. And this is going to help you to build qualities that you can then use in daily life. Just to give you guys a little bit of guidance on the structure of our meditation, is we start with a chant, and this chant is done in the Pali language. This is the original language of the source teachings of the Buddha, that if you look at his original teachings, they're captured in what's called the Pali language, which is no longer a spoken language today. And we chant in order to ease the mind into meditation and get awareness of the mind and awareness of the breath and ease the mind into the actual meditation. It's not prayer, it's not worship, it's not any kind of rites or rituals or ceremonies or anything like that. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help people remember his teachings. During his lifetime, he taught orally, where people would just listen to what he had to say, and they had to remember what he actually said, because they didn't have the ability to write things down during his lifetime. It wasn't until after he died that people actually wrote things down. So during his lifetime, they used chanting and reciting his teachings word for word to be able to commit it to memory. So every 2 weeks they would do the chanting. But we still do chanting today as a way to kind of ease the mind into meditation and ease it out of meditation. If you would like to follow along in the chants, we have them on a laminated sheet on the table over there. They're in the Pali language, and I have the English translations as well. You're welcome to get the laminated sheets over there. There should be plenty for everybody, so that you can see the chants that we're doing. When you look at the English translations, you'll see that it most likely was created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because they're paying a lot of respect and homage to the Buddha. And a Buddha is not going to teach students to go around and, bow down to him and respect him and things like this, but the students would have respected him because he was spending his time helping them to get from this unenlightened mental state to this enlightened mental state, which he was doing it out of the generosity of his heart. So these chants, you're welcome to chant along and see how I'm chanting, and practice that for yourself and even see the translations. In terms of the body positioning, if you're sitting on the floor, you might just sit with your legs lightly crossed. People typically like to have a cushion under their rear, and even multiple cushions. Some people like to get their hips really high up in the air because it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and this will help you more comfortably sit on the floor. Some people even like to sit in a chair or other positions as well. There's 4 positions for meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, standing and walking. And you're not going to be able to permanently be in one position, so you might need these different positions at different times. If you choose to sit in a chair, you might sit with your feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at your ankles. It's really up to you how you choose to sit, whether you're on the floor or in a chair, because you need to be comfortable. If the body is luxurious, the mind will have a tendency to be complacent and inactive. But also if the body is painful, then all you're going to be doing is experiencing pain through the meditation. It'd be very challenging to train it to either eliminate certain unwholesome qualities or cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So you'd like the body to be in the middle where it's comfortable. So your lower body should be nice and comfortable, as well as your hands and your arms. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could easily use this. But again, not everybody's going to find the same exact thing comfortable. So there's other options as well. You might try to put your palms on your thighs or on your knees. Some people like to put their palms up. It's really up to you. Whatever feels most comfortable. You do what feels good for you. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be complacent. Or if you were real rigid, the mind would have a tendency to be overactive and uptight and maybe anxious. So by having the upper body erect, it keeps the mind attentive and alert during your meditation so that you can do the work to actually meditate. I'm going to be starting off with the chanting, and you're welcome to chant along. As I mentioned, you can get more cushions if you like. You can get the laminated sheet over there if you like. I'm going to be doing the chanting, and if you'd like to follow along, you're welcome to do that. Some people might just choose to close their eyes and start breathing in and out as we're doing the chanting. After the chanting, I will come in with some guidance to be able to help you in the meditation so that you can actually be guided and understand what to do while you're in the meditation. And then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet and we'll all be meditating together. Here at the temple, and those of you guys online that would like to be meditating, we can all be meditating together. And then after we go through the period of meditation where it's just completely quiet, then I'll come back in with some chanting and it'll ease us out of the meditation. So this is how we're going to start our class. And then after the meditation, I'll open up to any questions you guys have about meditation before we go into our topic today, which is talking about enlightenment and what is enlightenment, so that you can understand what enlightenment is so you can more readily make your way to this actual goal. So make yourself comfortable and get whatever you need to get, and we'll go ahead and get started with our meditation. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Wat Tung Mahakavanang Abhivateyami Savakhato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho วิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรภูริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use my voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, experiencing the full breath, establishing a nice, natural breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, fixate the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Just whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหะคะวาพุทธังมหะคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหะคะวะตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิโตอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So once again, I would like to just welcome all of you guys, including those of you guys that came in after we started the class and started meditating. Welcome to Wat Tung. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation. It's a primary form of training that you would need to develop in order to make your way to enlightenment, this mental state that we're going to be discussing today. It's important to understand that the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think based on the instruction that the goal is to eliminate your thoughts. That's actually not the goal of this meditation. It's impossible to eliminate your thoughts as long as you're alive. You're going to have thoughts. You can quiet the mind. You can still the mind for a period of time. And that's where the peacefulness and the joy of the enlightened mental state start coming through more and more in your meditation, but also outside of your meditation as well. The goal of the meditation is to cultivate the mind to develop awareness of mind or mindfulness and concentration, that ability to have focus and clarity of mind. You're also training the mind to easily let go, to be able to let go of anything that it's holding on to. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that arises, but in daily life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts that might arise. If you have a wholesome thought in daily life, like maybe you'd like to take your friend out to lunch today, hey, go forward. Maybe you'd like to call your mom and say hello and see how she's doing. Maybe it's Mother's Day. Maybe it's her birthday. Go forward. That's a very wholesome thing to do. But if you're having unwholesome thoughts, that's what you're going to cut off in daily life. But in meditation, when you're exercising the mind, you're cutting off anything that might arise. If you had a bombardment of thoughts during your meditation where it was just like thought, this is very normal, particularly when you're first starting out. Or if you had a thought and you indulged in that thought for a period of time and kind of followed it, and then after a few minutes, you're like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. This is also very normal. Even when the mind is enlightened, an individual is going to have occasional thoughts in their meditation, but they're going to notice it very soon, and they're going to be able to easily cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. Where in the unenlightened state, we tend to have a bombardment of thoughts, or there's a following of the thought, kind of an indulging in the thought before you realize several minutes later that you need to cut that off and bring the mind back. So you're exercising the mind, and when you first start at something, you're not going to be an expert. Sometimes people put pressure on themselves to be an expert when they first start something. This is a practice that you gradually develop. One of the biggest myths in the teachings of the Buddha, or at least in the world, not in his teachings, but among the world, is people think that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. And that's to think that he was a master at meditation as soon as he got started. This isn't actually true. If you read his teachings and you see what he taught, he talks about this gradual training, this gradual practice, and this gradual progress to enlightenment. And he accomplished getting to enlightenment over a 6-year period. It wasn't just an instantaneous thing that he meditated and then boom, he got to enlightenment. So the same thing is true for you, that if you're going to get to enlightenment, it would need to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. And the same thing's true about everything that you've ever done, whether it's learning English, whether it's learning a certain job or occupation. It's been gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So the same thing is true about getting to enlightenment as well. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions about meditation, because oftentimes people are building up their meditation practice. If you're here in the temple, you can just raise your hand and let me know you have a question. And if you're online, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. If you're asking a question in Facebook, you would need to come into our group of Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. If you're seeing this in one of those other places, I'm not going to be able to monitor all those places for questions, but you can put that into Daily Wisdom, into YouTube, or in Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see it and answer your question. If you're in Zoom, you can also electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like. So do you guys have any questions here or either online? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So what I'll do, oh yes sir, if you have a question, if you wouldn't mind using the microphone here, if you guys could pass that to him, that way the people online will be able to hear your question. There's a little button that you just turn it on the front.
So I open it. So I have a question related to I'm easy to fall asleep when I do no matter meditation or go to bed. So how to avoid this during the meditation? Because I'm thinking like when I come into sleep, I also close all the mind, something like that. How to avoid this kind of situation?
Sure. There's one of two things that you can do. Is the first thing is you can change positions. This is one of the reasons why the Buddha taught 4 positions of meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. Seated and lying, the mind tends to be interested to fall asleep in some cases, but with standing and walking meditation, the mind can be more attentive and more alert during the meditation. So if you're either seated or lying and you're noticing you're falling asleep, you can change to standing or change to walking. And if you don't know how to do those, I can show them to you and teach you how to do standing or walking meditation. And I've created online classes and videos where you can watch that kind of thing online as well. So that would be one of the first things you could do to extend your meditation cycles, your meditation sessions, and keep the mind attentive and alert, is just change body positions during the actual session, or just start in standing or walking if you know you're kind of sleepy. The second thing is is as you're starting to meditate and you're learning to meditate and the mind's starting to be trained, it's a lot of work for the mind. It's a lot of effort. The mind hasn't necessarily been exercised in this way, and the mind also hasn't necessarily been sleeping well in the past. But as you start training the mind and you start lifting the pollution out of the mind, you might notice that there's a tendency for the mind to be more interested to sleep. And you'll notice that you actually get better quality of sleep when you actually do sleep. So if you're noticing that the mind has more of a tendency to sleep, it might just mean that you need more sleep and you should get some sleep. So if you're starting to meditate, you're 5-10 minutes in and you're getting really sleepy and really groggy, just go to sleep, get some rest. And then when you wake up, do some meditation. This way your mind can get adequate rest that it needs. So you'll notice that your mind will have a tendency to be more interested to sleep and have better quality sleep. But after you get over the hump, maybe kind of like 3 months, 6 months or so, you might notice that the mind starts kind of opening up. And after you've kind of lifted out more of the pollution, which we're going to be talking about today, after you get more of the pollution out of the mind, then you'll notice that there'll be more brightness and more radiance, more crispness in the mind. So being more interested to sleep and having a tendency to sleep more regularly is pretty common, especially as someone's first getting started and starting to lift the pollution out of the mind. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're welcome. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to helping you guys learn the topic that I have to share with you guys today. As I mentioned, this is part of our group learning program. And on Sundays, we share teachings that from this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. It's volume 1 of the book series. And you can download this book for free, or you can take it and go print it, or you can get printed versions either here at the temple or online through Amazon if you'd like to learn in this program. The program's available for everyone. It's available at no cost. And you can attend here at the temple, or you can join online through the live stream. So let me share with you guys some things about this enlightened mental state, because in order to get to enlightenment, which is the ultimate goal of the teachings of the Buddha, you need to know what this enlightened mental state is, so that way you can more readily navigate your way to the enlightened mental state. And you'll know that you've actually arrived once your mind is actually enlightened. If you were going to go from maybe Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai, you would need to know, what is Chiang Rai like? What do they have there? What are some of the things that are going on there? You would need to kind of be interested and know something about Chiang Rai, and then you'll be more readily able to navigate your way. So if someone tells you that Chiang Rai is north of Thailand, and they start giving you certain details that you have to go through the mountains, so forth and so on, as they explain this to you, as you make your way to Chiang Rai, you'll be more readily able to make your way to Chiang Rai. And then once you get to Chiang Rai, you'll know that you're there, because you're starting to see some of the things that people mentioned would be there once you arrive. So the same thing is true with enlightenment, that the more you understand and know what it is, the more readily you'll be able to navigate your way to it, and you'll know that you've arrived. But in talking about enlightenment, it's important to understand that it's a challenge for the unenlightened mind to actually understand what enlightenment is. The best way to understand what enlightenment is to actually experience it. It's kind of like, could you describe what chocolate ice cream tastes like if you never have tasted chocolate ice cream? Right? It would be very difficult for you to explain what chocolate ice cream tastes like if you've never actually experienced it. So in order for you to understand what chocolate ice cream tastes like, you need to taste chocolate ice cream. So enlightenment is the same way. I can describe it to you all day long, and you'll understand more about it after our discussion, but you're not going to fully understand what enlightenment is until you're more readily making your way to it and starting to experience more and more of the qualities of the enlightened mind. So as we discuss what enlightenment is, understand that it's a challenge for the unenlightened mind to understand it. But at the same time, it's important to ask questions. As you have questions today, either here at the temple or online, feel free to ask any and all questions as we go in our discussion. And for those of you guys here at the temple, just to kind of get you acquainted a little bit with the space, in the back of the room on the right, there's a bathroom you're welcome to use at any time. You don't have to ask permission or anything like that. Anytime you need to get up and go use the bathroom, feel free. There's also one outside as well. If you go outside, you'll see the bathrooms out there. And we even have fresh water over here that's donated by our students, that you guys are welcome to help yourself to any of the fresh water that we have. So just make yourself comfortable, and as we go, ask any and all questions that you like. So what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is a mental state that you attain in this life, either in the human realm or in the heavenly realm. These are two existences that individuals have the ability to get to enlightenment. So for example, an animal wouldn't have an opportunity to get to enlightenment. It needs to be reborn into a human existence or into a heavenly existence, because animals can't cultivate their mind to the same degree as a human. So a human being can train their mind and get to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. You no longer experience any sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, stress, anxiety. You're not even in a bad mood anymore once the mind is enlightened. You're always in a good mood because you've eliminated the pollutions that are causing the bad mood to exist. You're eliminating the conditions that are causing the sadness and the anger and the frustration. We tend to think in the unenlightened state and in the human existence that sadness, anger, frustration, and these kind of things are kind of normal. And we typically will blame other people. When you're experiencing anger, you might blame other people for your anger. But what you learn in the teachings of the Buddha, and you can independently verify for yourself, and you can see, is that your mind is actually causing these feelings itself. Your mind is causing the sadness and anger and frustration and all those other feelings. And because your mind is actually causing it, you can actually eliminate them from the mind. What one will typically do in the unenlightened state is, because they think somebody else is causing them to be angry, they will tend to push people away out of their life. This is called aversion, because you're falsely understanding what the problem is, and you think if you push this person out of your life, that will solve the problem. Or you might be bitter and harsh and aggressive with people, trying to fear people into doing things your way. Or you might put your expectations on people, trying to get people to do things your way. But this isn't going to work. You're not going to be able to get rid of your anger that way, because that's not the actual problem. If other people were actually causing your anger, when you push them out of your life, you wouldn't get angry anymore. But you know that if you've pushed somebody out of your life, you get irritated, you get annoyed, you get frustrated again and again and again, because the condition that's causing these feelings is inside your mind. The Buddha discovered 10 individual pollutions. We're going to be discussing those today as part of our discussion. They're called the 10 fetters. These are the 10 individual pollutions that are causing the mind to experience discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And when you eliminate these 10 pollutions from the mind, you can get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind's relaxed, but yet attentive and alert. So it's relaxed and calm, but the mind's going to be attentive and alert. Oftentimes when we think relaxed and calm, we think lethargic. But in the enlightened mind, while it's relaxed and calm, it's attentive and alert as well. You have energy. An enlightened being is never tired. They'll get sleepy where you need to go to sleep, but you don't get exhausted or tired. At the end of your day, if you go out into the world, you might come home and you might feel completely wiped out and exhausted, because the mind's chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing and wanting certain things to happen in the world. And if you get the things you want, you'll get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if you don't get what you want, you'll get angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. And this can be really exhausting, because throughout your day, your mind might be going up and down based on chasing after your cravings, desires, attachments. And when you're chasing after your cravings, desires, attachments, you're longing, you're yearning. If you get what you want, you'll get temporary pleasant feelings, which is like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are called conditioned feelings. Your happiness is based on some condition, that if it's sunny outside, I will be happy. Or if my mom calls me today, I will be happy. Or if I get a certain amount of money in my bank account today, I will be happy. But that happiness is temporary because it's based on some condition, and that condition is impermanent. So because that condition is not permanent, your happiness is not permanent. So if your happiness is based on it being sunny outside, it can't be permanently sunny outside. So therefore, you can't be permanently happy if you base your happiness on the sun, or if you base your happiness on how much money you have in your bank account. Your mind can't be permanently happy because the amount of money in your bank account is not permanent. Or if you base your inner happiness on whether mom or dad or brothers or sisters call you on the phone or send you a text message, you can't be permanently happy because you're basing your inner feelings on some condition. So these are called conditional feelings that is experienced in the unenlightened state, where the mind's going up and down and up and down. And this can be very exhausting for you by the end of your day in the unenlightened state. But by the time the mind gets to enlightenment, you're no longer basing your inner feelings on some condition. Instead, you've unconditioned the mind. You've purified the mind. Enlightenment itself is a mental state that you attain in this life, or you can attain it at death as well. But the process of getting to enlightenment is called the path to enlightenment. This is where you're purifying the mind. You're purifying the mind of the pollutions and the conditions that are causing the mind to go up and down and up and down. So this purification of the mind, you're eliminating the pollutions of craving, anger, and ignorance. This is kind of a high-level way to describe the taints or pollutions or defilements. But the 10 fetters explain it in more detail, which we're going to be talking about here in a moment. Some people refer to enlightenment as happiness or ultimate bliss. If you talk with some people, they might refer to it that way. I don't use those words because this more appropriately describes what's called the jhanas. There's these 4 preliminary phases that the mind goes through before it gets to the first stage of enlightenment. There's 4 individual stages of enlightenment, which we're going to also be talking about today. Before you get to the first stage of enlightenment, there's 4 phases that the mind goes through, and these are called jhanas. I usually use all English words, but occasionally there's a word that doesn't translate to just one English word, so I need to use the original Pali word, and jhana is one of those words. What a jhana is this preliminary phase that the mind experiences. There needs to be a certain amount of absorption of meditation. There needs to be a certain amount of mental absorption of the teachings themselves by learning and practicing the teachings, and then you're transforming the mind in your daily life. So as the mind is moving through the jhanas, you'll experience this ultimate bliss, this happiness oftentimes that is in the mind, this excitement. But then as those conditioned feelings are fading away, more and more the peace and the calm, the serenity, the contentedness and the joy start shining through. So in the unenlightened state, the mind can only be happy if these conditions are met. If it's sunny outside, if my friend calls me, if my bank account is this, if my boss does this, right, I'm going to be happy. But then the problem with that is the mind's then going to go to this sadness and frustration and irritation and annoyance, right? So an unenlightened mind can only experience happiness if certain conditions are met. We might call this conditional happiness. In the enlightened state, the mind is unconditioned. It's eliminated the pollutions. It's eliminated the conditions that are causing these conditioned feelings. So now in the mind and being enlightened, you're experiencing the unconditioned qualities of peace and joy. So an enlightened being, it doesn't need to have anything specific in order to be happy or to be joyful. The mind's just always happy. It's unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy. Where in the unenlightened state, if you wake up and you see it's sunny outside, you might get happy and excited. Yay, it's so sunny outside. I get to go hiking. I get to go outside and play. It's going to be so fun. Yeah, let's go. And then you go take a shower, and when you come out, it's raining, and now you'll be sad and you'll be frustrated because you based your inner feelings of happiness based on the sun. But the sun is not permanent. So therefore, your happiness wasn't permanent, and it switches to sadness or frustration when the condition of the sun changes. But in the enlightened mental state, when you wake up, you're already joyful. you're already happy before you even see that it's sunny outside. Now you might go and you see that it's sunny outside. It's like, sweet, it's sunny outside. Yeah, we can go hiking. Outstanding. I'm going to call my friend, see if they would like to go hiking with me today. And then you go take a shower and you come out and it's raining. And it's like, all right, well, it's raining. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll go see my friend. We'll go out to eat or something like that. Let's just do something else, right? No need to be sad. No need to be angry or frustrated just because the sun is no longer there. So by the time you train your mind to get to enlightenment, you won't be experiencing this up and down and up and down. You'll be experiencing permanent peace and permanent joy for the rest of this life. You won't experience any more anger, frustration, or any of those other discontent feelings. So these are the advantages of getting to enlightenment. The mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently for the rest of this life. You're not even in a bad mood anymore. You don't even have the slightest displeasure. Right now, there might be certain people in your life that you just dislike, or you might see somebody at a restaurant or in a public place and you just don't like them. You might not like the way they look. You might not like the way they talk. You might not like the way that they dress or something else. The mind just gets irritated and annoyed in certain situations. This is because of the pollution that's in the mind in the unenlightened state. But by the time you eliminate those pollutions, you won't have that dislike towards other beings. This is what's going on in your own mind. That person isn't causing you to dislike them. It's your own mind having these pollutions that you're looking at this individual and you're choosing to dislike them because there's certain things that you want from that person. You want them to look a certain way. You want them to talk a certain way. You want them to function in the world a certain way. And when they don't function the way that you want them to function, you will dislike them or you'll get angry or frustrated with them. But you can transform all of this. Every single being that's born is unenlightened. I don't think of an unenlightened being as a bad person. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are about. It's not about telling you that you're at fault or you're a bad person or anything like that. He's explaining to you what's causing these difficulties and struggles in your life, what's plaguing your mind, so that then when you understand what the problem is, then you can actually implement solutions through tools and techniques to purify your mind and experience an improved existence. You can experience this better way of life. So every being that is unenlightened is experiencing these same types of things where the mind is discontent. But by the time you move it to this enlightened mental state, you'll have this high degree of focus and concentration, clarity of mind and deep memory because you're fine-tuning the mind and helping it to perform more optimally. You'll eliminate these discontent feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, boredom, loneliness, shyness, resentment, jealousy, stress, anxiety. All of these feelings and others are completely eliminated because you eliminate the pollutions that are causing it, or you eliminate the conditions that are causing it. An enlightened being is going to have deep wisdom. They're going to be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. Right now, you might only be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in certain situations. And in other situations, you might really struggle and have a bit of a little bit of roughness in your relationships. But by the time you purify your mind and you train your mind, you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all your relationships. Every situation, you'd be able to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. You'll notice because of this that your personal and professional relationships will blossom. Again, you might have certain relationships now, maybe with your parents, with your siblings, with your life partner, maybe with your children, maybe with your neighbors or other people. There's a bit of rub perhaps in your relationships, a little bit of difficulties here and there, or maybe a lot of difficulties in certain situations. And where you're experiencing that, again, I don't think of it as you're a bad person. It's just that your mind is lacking wisdom, that it hasn't been trained in order to uproot these pollutions and get rid of them. So once you understand what these pollutions are, and you then start implementing the teachings that I'm going to share in chapter 4 and 5 and 6 and the rest of this program, then you'll learn how to actually uproot these pollutions out of the mind so that then you can start experiencing this peace and joy shining through in the mind. There can be more brightness and more radiance coming through in the mind. In terms of the way to actually experience enlightenment and how to actually do it, you would need to learn these core central teachings. There's other teachings beyond this, but this is where students usually start, with the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the Brahma Viharas, the 10 fetters, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and developing extensive meditation training. These are all things that I teach as part of this group learning program and various courses and retreats that I teach. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to be starting a brand new course for 5 days. It's called The Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment. I teach this every month, where Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., students come here and I teach you these core teachings over the course of 5 days. And we even take a field trip on the 5th day on Friday by going out and touring some of the temples. But you can come here if you like. It's at no cost. There's nothing for you to pay. You can register online through our website if you like, or you can just show up at 9 a.m. And we take a nice hour-and-a-half lunch break. So it's a nice time to meet people and learn the teachings and develop your practice towards this enlightened mental state and learning these individual teachings. The way that the teachings of the Buddha work is it's not about believe, and hope something good happens when you die. That's not what the teachings of the Buddha are. He also doesn't use guilt, shame, or fear to try to convince you to learn his teachings. Instead, the way that you learn the teachings of the Buddha is you're learning his teachings. You are reflecting on those teachings to independently verify them, whether they're true or false. And then you're practicing his teachings, implementing them in daily life so that you can transform your mind and uproot the pollutions of the mind through these teachings. And then you see the results. So you're learning now, you're reflecting on the teachings now to independently verify them. Then you're practicing the teachings now in this life, and you see the results now, that the condition of the mind's improving. Because you know in situations where you were once angry and frustrated and irritated, as you're learning these teachings and you experience those same situations and you're no longer angry and you're no longer frustrated, your mind is peaceful and joyful in those same exact situations where you once got angry, you'll know that it's these teachings that are guiding you to that improved condition of mind. So we call these teachings like the 3 universal truths or the 4 noble truths because the Buddha knew that they were truth. I know that they're truth. There's other people that know that they're truth. But in order for you to get to enlightenment, you need to see the truth in those teachings. So that's why you're on your own independent journey to enlightenment. My goal as a teacher isn't to try to convince you to learn the teachings of the Buddha or pressure you to learn the teachings of the Buddha. That's not what a Buddhist teacher does. Instead, we make ourselves available to help you understand this path. If you're interested in getting rid of anger and sadness and frustration and these other discontent feelings, we're here to help you. But you're on your own independent journey to get to enlightenment. You've got to do the work. Essentially, what the path to enlightenment is it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. I usually like to say that more than one time because I think it's very helpful to understand that the path to enlightenment is like a self-help program that's well vetted. It's been around for 2,500 years. It's to heal from what hurt you so that you never, ever need to hurt ever again in your life. That's the way that an enlightened being is experiencing the world. They're no longer experiencing painful feelings ever again. So you can eliminate all the painful feelings that you've experienced over the course of your life. You can get to the point where the mind's peaceful and joyful for the rest of your life, and your mind can be at ease. And this is something that you can gradually notice that the mind is experiencing as you're learning and implementing these teachings, and you're transforming the mind, eliminating the pollution from the mind. So you need to learn, reflect, and practice, independently verifying the teachings, progressing on this journey, making wise decisions along the way in order to transform your mind and actually train the mind. Okay? Let me pause here and see if you guys have any questions before we move into the next part, because the next part I'm going to explain to you the 10 individual pollutions of mind, which are called the 10 fetters. But before we move into that, let me just pause and see if you guys have any questions on what enlightenment is so far before I start explaining to you some of the pollutions and what you're experiencing in the unenlightened state and how to actually transform the mind. So here you guys are welcome to use the microphones and ask any questions that you like. And then online, you can just put your question into the Facebook group of Daily Wisdom, or in YouTube or in Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask questions there as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. So let me move to the next piece, which is talking about the 10 fetters. We call these the fetters because what a fetter is it's like a shackle around your ankle with a chain and a ball. That's what a fetter is. It's an obstruction. It keeps you trapped in the unenlightened state. This fetter, the shackle and chain and ball, it keeps a prisoner trapped as a prisoner. So the 10 fetters, or these 10 pollutions, are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And when you eliminate these fetters, the mind can be more bright and radiant. You can experience those qualities of the enlightened mind as I was discussing. So we call these fetters, some people refer to them as taints, or pollutions, or defilements. You'll hear these referenced as people talk about the teachings of the Buddha, but more formally, we usually refer to them as the 10 fetters. These are 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, and when you understand what each individual pollution is, then you can actually learn the solutions of how to eliminate it. And you can start seeing how your mind is affected by these pollutions. So let me just talk about a couple of these to help you understand what they are and how you actually eliminate them. I won't go into extensive detail, but I'll just kind of give you an introduction to some of them so you understand what we're talking about here. Let's talk about this first one called personal existence view. What personal existence view is this is where the mind falsely believes, mistakenly understands, has the misperception or the misunderstanding that this body is you, and or this mind is you, and this is who you are. So the mind will cling to this body, a certain self-image, wanting to be perceived in the world a certain way. And it'll cling to a certain self-identity in the mind, wanting to be perceived in the world a certain way. And when you're perceived in the world, you want to be perceived in terms of agreeable contact, you will experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation. But when you have disagreeable contact, you will then experience painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So if somebody compliments you on your physical appearance, you might get pleasant feelings. If someone says, "Oh, you look so beautiful today," or "Oh, your eyes are so handsome," or something like this. If you associate with this body as being who you are as a person, now you'll get pleasant feelings. But because of impermanence, and that these things are all impermanent, and you're not going to permanently hear agreeable things, it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging to you about your self-image. And now when somebody says something degrading or disparaging about your self-image, you'll experience painful feelings of frustration or sadness or anger. And you can't control how other people talk to you. It's not possible for you to control 8 billion people in the world. So if your mind has this personal existence view, which every unenlightened mind has, then you're going to cling to this body thinking that this is who you are. And now if you're not perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived, you'll experience these painful feelings. And when you have agreeable contact, you'll get pleasant feelings. If you've ever spilled chocolate ice cream or spaghetti sauce on your clothes and you got embarrassed, the reason why is because of personal existence view, that you wanted to be perceived in the world a certain way. And when you had the spaghetti sauce or the chocolate ice cream on your clothing, you might have been embarrassed in front of people. Or if you saw a wrinkle or a gray hair or a pimple or a mole, or you started losing your hair and you started going bald, then you might have experienced the painful feelings of sadness, frustration, annoyance, or some other feeling like this. Or if you started getting a little bit of fat around certain parts of the body, if you're associating with this body as who you are, you'll experience certain pleasant feelings when you have agreeable experiences. But when you have disagreeable experiences, you will have those painful feelings. So by eliminating this personal existence view, which the Buddha provides you solutions and tools of how to do that, you won't associate with this body as who you are. You'll understand that this body isn't who you are as a person. It's just physical structures that you are inhabiting at this particular point in time. But these structures are constantly changing. They're not permanent. But your mind's going to crave to have permanent youthfulness, for example, or permanent health, or to appear and look in the world a permanent way. And when you start experiencing all this impermanence and all this change, the mind doesn't like that because it wants to be perceived in the world a certain way. And then there's the same thing going on with the self-identity. There's certain cultural identification, certain ethnic identification, maybe sexual orientation or your job or occupation. You might have taken that on as your identity, or maybe certain roles that you fulfill in the world, that you're taking this on as a certain identity, like I am a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, or I am a wife, or I'm an engineer, or I'm an electrician, or I am a business owner, or I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor. This I am. As long as your mind has this I am Chinese, or I am Thai, or I am American, or I am Israeli, or I am Dutch, or I am French, or I am a Brit, or I am an Aussie, or any of these other things that the mind adopts as your identity. Again, when you hear people say agreeable things about your country and your ethnicity or your job or occupation, you'll get pleasant feelings. But it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging, or you turn on a TV program and something on the TV is saying something degrading and disparaging about something that your mind is identifying with. So as long as your mind is holding on and clinging to this identity of I am a Buddhist teacher, for example, someone might say all Buddhist teachers are lovely and kind and generous. Well, if I am a Buddhist teacher and that's how the mind identifies, then you're going to experience pleasant feelings when you hear that. But it's only a matter of time before somebody says something degrading and disparaging about Buddhist teachers. And now when you hear that, you would feel angry or sad or frustrated. So you can understand that you're performing a certain role without actually grabbing onto it and allowing the mind to cling to it as your identity of who you are. So you can eliminate personal existence view by learning the teachings of the Buddha, and you can get liberated from this up and down based on your self-image or your self-identity. And you can realize non-self, realizing that there is no self here. This is what you would do, but there's certain tools and techniques that you would need to learn in order to uproot this out of the mind. So as long as this personal existence view is in there, you're going to experience certain complications in your life. Maybe you've been a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife at different time, and you've identified with that's who you are. And then when the relationship was over, you might have struggled. You might have wanted to hurry up and get back into another relationship in order to assume this identity again, because you didn't feel comfortable being single, because your identity was I'm a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, or I'm a husband, or I'm a wife. And then when you guys separated, you might have wanted to feel like to hurry up and get back in another relationship because you felt uncomfortable and there was displeasure in that experience. So when you get rid of this personal existence view, you won't have those type of feelings anymore. You can just reside peaceful and joyful, whether you're a boyfriend or girlfriend or you're not. You can be peaceful and joyful either way. You don't have to identify with this is who you are as a person. So this is what personal existence view is. And then there's various tools and techniques to go in and eliminate this. The second one here is doubt. What doubt is doubt about the Buddha, doubt about his teachings, doubt about the community that you're part of, because this community will help you and support you in getting to enlightenment. Doubt about your teacher and their ability to help you get to enlightenment, and doubt about your own ability to get to enlightenment. So you might have doubt about the Buddha, the teachings, the community, your teacher, and your own ability to get to enlightenment. This is pretty common when somebody first comes to the path to enlightenment, that they will have doubt. And this is a pollution. This will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. But you don't eliminate your doubt through belief or blind belief or faith or something like this. The way that you eliminate your doubt is you eliminate it through investigating the teachings of the Buddha, by investigating them and examining them, by learning them, reflecting on them to independently verify them, and then practicing them to transform your mind, this is where you'll be able to then get rid of your doubt. Because as you're investigating the teachings and you're practicing the teachings, you're transforming your mind, you're eliminating the pollutions of the mind, you'll see more peacefulness and joy come into the mind. You'll know that it's these teachings that are leading to an improved condition of mind and an improved condition of your life. And in doing so, you'll eventually get to the point over time where you will have no doubt that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of your mind, an improved condition of your life, and you won't have doubt whether or not these teachings are actually working. But the way that you do that is through investigating and examining the teachings, through independently verifying them, through practicing them. You don't get to the elimination of doubt through belief or faith or something like that. And then let's talk about this third one, and then we'll go on from here, and I'll open up to questions you guys might have on these, is wrong behavior and observances. What this is the Buddha teaches a certain amount of moral conduct in his teachings. The core central teaching of the Buddha is called the Eightfold Path. In this teaching, you learn various teachings around wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. The moral conduct is there because it's based on the natural law of karma. If you've maybe heard the word karma, which is the Sanskrit version of this word, the Pali version is karma. What karma is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. So your life, your decisions, and your results. It's not punishment and rewards. It's not mystical or magical. It's essentially a sequencing of events that when you make wise decisions, it will produce wholesome results. And when you make unwise decisions, it will produce unwholesome results. So if you go around speaking to people in unwise ways, or if you start interacting with your body in unwise ways, or if you're working in a particular occupation or job as a livelihood, and you're sustaining your life off of the harm of other beings, then this harm is all going to come back to you. Through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, you can cause harm, because when you lack wisdom of the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, you will make unwise decisions that lead to unwholesome results. So the Buddha teaches you in the Eightfold Path moral conduct as a way to help you eliminate any harm that you're causing to others, so that harm won't come back to you. So by the time you eliminate wrong behavior, you've eliminated your harm that you're causing through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood, based on the Eightfold Path, this core central teaching that I'm going to be teaching in chapter 5 as part of this group learning program in 2 weeks. Or if you come to the course this week that's coming up, I also teach it in that course as well, because it's a core central teaching. What wrong observances are. A wrong observance are things like rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. There's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship in the teachings of the Buddha. Even though you might go to a Buddhist temple, or you might interact with a Buddhist monk, and they might be doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, the Buddha never taught that. If you look to his teachings, he never taught any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. Because if you understand what the core problem in the unenlightened mind is, which is a lack of wisdom, that there's a certain ignorance or unknowing of true reality, or confusion or misunderstanding in the mind, that's the core central problem that the unenlightened mind is experiencing. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship that's going to fix that. So if somebody sprinkles water on you, that's not going to fix the problems in your unenlightened mind. That's not going to eliminate the pollutions from your mind. That's not going to teach you how to interact in the world through your moral conduct or your mental discipline in wise ways. So even though people might do rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, which are modifications that people added into the teachings of the Buddha after he died, the Buddha never taught that, because it doesn't actually lead to enlightenment. So if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, you would need to understand what the core central problem is, which is the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom, or some people refer to it as ignorance or delusion or confusion or misunderstanding. And there's no rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship that's ever going to fix that. So you would need to be able to see the clarity of that. And there's actually teachings called dependent origination and others that will help you to be able to see that more and more clearly so that you can eliminate any wrong observances that you might think that this particular rite, ritual, or ceremony or worship is going to produce some kind of beneficial result in your mind. If you choose to do these things, it's up to you that you choose to do these things. The Buddha never taught rules or commandments or anything like this. He never taught punishments and rewards and things like this. He's just explaining to you the way that your mind works, and he's explaining to you the way the world works through the natural laws of existence. And you can awaken to this wisdom by learning, reflecting, and practicing the teachings. There's others here too, like sensual desire and ill will. And then there's the higher fetters as well, which these are ones that you would need to eliminate in order to ultimately get to enlightenment. So let's talk about number 8 for a moment. Number 8 is conceit. This is like arrogance or pride, judging other people, measuring and comparing yourself, putting yourself above people or putting yourself below people. This is problematic in your life. If you're kind of thinking about this pecking order and trying to figure out if you're above people or below people, you will tend to speak to people and interact with people in unwise ways. Instead, in this human realm, you need to be able to see that everybody's equal. Even though other people might think of themselves as being above you, it's important that you don't think of yourself above them, or also that you don't think of yourself below them either. Because if you put yourself above people, you'll talk down to people with arrogance and boastfulness. But also if you put yourself below people, your mind will be shaken up. It'll be uncalm and unwell. Maybe if you're around a celebrity, or maybe a famous politician, or maybe the president or prime minister of your country, maybe your mind will be shaken up in that situation. But if you just view everybody equally, you can reside peaceful and calm, serene and content with joy, no matter who you're around, because you view everybody equally. But when there's this conceit in the mind where you're measuring and comparing people and you're putting yourself above and below others, this is going to be problematic in your life, and your mind's going to be shaken up because of this. So there are certain tools and techniques that you learn in this group learning program. I teach it as part of chapter 16, and I teach it as part of various courses and retreats about how to eliminate this conceit. This is essentially part of the ego. The personal existence view and conceit is what we call the ego. This word ego didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha, and he describes it in these two separate ways, which is actually really helpful, because when you understand these two different aspects of the ego, being personal existence view and conceit, it produces symptoms that are unique based on the individual pollutions, and the tools and techniques to eliminate personal existence view versus conceit are somewhat different. So the Buddha accurately describes it as personal existence view and conceit. But here in modern times, we're kind of combining this, and we're calling it the ego, where we don't need ego. Ego is just going to cause difficulties in your life. So these are some of the 10 fetters that I've mentioned, but these 10 are all of them here. And these are the 10 that you would need to eliminate, with number 10 being the one that's the last one to be eliminated from the mind. This is ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, the misunderstandings that the mind has, that it lacks certain wisdom. The mind in the unenlightened state, for example, thinks that other people are causing you to be angry. And you can learn that that's not actually the case, that you are actually causing your own mind to be angry. And if you're willing to look at that and be able to see the truth in that, you can actually get to a real solution. But as long as you hold on to this false belief that other people are causing you to be angry, then you'll continue to be angry for the rest of your life. But when you study the Four Noble Truths, you can see the truth that your mind is actually causing this anger itself. And that's why you can actually eliminate it. So any questions on the 10 fetters? Okay, so let's go on to the next piece, which is talking about the 4 stages of enlightenment. As your mind is practicing what's called the Eightfold Path, this is the core central teaching of the Buddha, your mind moves through those 4 preliminary phases called the jhanas. And the Buddha describes those jhanas, and you can see if you look at his description and you experience these jhanas that he's describing it accurately. And now as your mind moves through these 4 preliminary phases, then eventually you'll get to these 4 stages of enlightenment. And as your mind's moving through these 4 stages of enlightenment, you'll start seeing the reduction and diminishing of discontentedness and more of the qualities of the enlightened mind coming through as you experience each one of these stages. We call it stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arahant. Arahant is when the mind is actually enlightened and you've eliminated all the 10 fetters. In the first stage of enlightenment as a stream enterer, you've eliminated the first 3 fetters: personal existence view, doubt, and wrong behavior and observances. And then by the time you get to the second stage, which is once returner, you've already eliminated the first 3 fetters, and number 4 and 5, you just kind of thinned those out. That they're not completely eliminated, but you've thinned them out. Then when you get to the third stage, which is called non-returner, you've eliminated the 5 lower fetters of personal existence view, doubt, wrong behavior and observances, sensual desire, and ill will. You've completely eliminated those from the mind. And then by the time you get to arahantship, or arahant, or by the time the mind is enlightened, you've eliminated all the 10 fetters, the lower fetters and the higher fetters. And as you're moving through these stages of enlightenment, you're experiencing more and more peace, more and more joy starting to shine through in the mind. Then there's this individual called a Buddha. This isn't an actual stage of enlightenment. There's some people who mistakenly think that a Buddha is an actual stage of enlightenment. They will say that if you get to enlightenment, you are a Buddha. But this isn't what the Buddha said. The Buddha shared these 4 stages of enlightenment. You can get to enlightenment as an enlightened being, but you wouldn't be a Buddha at that point. A Buddha meets certain criteria that is very unique beyond an enlightened being. An enlightened being, their mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. It's no longer experiencing any discontent feelings. But there's 3 primary criteria that make a Buddha a Buddha. And a Buddha is an arahant. They've eliminated the 10 fetters. But the difference between a Buddha and the difference between a normal enlightened being is a normal enlightened being is going to need teachers and guides to help them to get to enlightenment, where a Buddha has done this work on their own without the help of any teachers or any guides. They independently discovered what it took to get to the enlightened mental state. So a Buddha does the work by themselves without any help from any teachers or any guides. That's the first criteria. They get to enlightenment by themselves. The second criteria is once they awaken to enlightenment, they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their teachings that they independently discovered. And during that time frame, countless people get to enlightenment. So Gotama Buddha got to enlightenment at the age of 35, and he spent the next 45 years until he died at the age of 80, helping people get to enlightenment. And countless people got to enlightenment during his lifetime because they could see that their mind was no longer angry. It was no longer frustrated. They gradually evolved the mind. So a Buddha is going to dedicate their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings, helping countless people get to enlightenment. And then the third criteria is that they're going to preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people can get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the 3 main criteria. They independently get to enlightenment without any help of teachers or guides. They dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings, and countless people get to enlightenment. And then the third criteria is that they preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people get to enlightenment after their death. And then there's these other criteria as well. A Buddha has a profound memory, a deep, 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 deep memory. They can remember countless details about their current life and their past life as well. In the average person, it's like you have a certain hard drive, say 1 gigabyte or 1 terabyte of hard drive space in your mind. And in order to have as you have new experiences, you need to delete old files in order to store new files because you have a certain limited capacity. And that's why if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories. There are certain memories that you have about your childhood that are just kind of spotty. But in the last 5 or 10 years, you can remember pretty much the vast majority of what you've been experiencing over the last 5 or 10 years. But in the past, you just have spotty memories. But for a Buddha, they have a deep, profound memory. They have an unlimited capacity to their mind, and they can remember countless details about their current life and their past life as well. And this is why they're able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, because they collect up wisdom over multiple lifetimes that leads to them being able to put together all this wisdom in their last life and then being able to get to enlightenment in that last life without the help of any teachers or guides, because they have all of this wisdom that has been put together from all these various lives that they can remember and have this deep memory about. A Buddha can quickly determine the condition of someone else's mind through observing the qualities of their mind. And then that individual is going to be able to then help that person with teachings if that person is choosing to ask for teachings. So a Buddha can essentially read the mind of another person. They don't do this in order to show off or be boastful or arrogant or anything like this, but they use it as a tool, as a way to help their students, because there's no outward characteristic that determines who a Buddha is. So it's not like the ear of a Buddha is turned a certain way and then everybody knows that that person is a Buddha. People don't necessarily know who the Buddha actually is. If you learn with the Buddha and you understand what I'm sharing with you here, eventually as your mind is awakening, some people get to the point where they understand that the person they're studying with is an actual Buddha. But a Buddha is very rare in the world. The last one that existed was over 2,500 years ago. And when you're studying with the Buddha, people won't actually know that it's a Buddha until they get really far on the path and actually awaken the mind. So this is actually really helpful to a Buddha and allows him to do his work, that if people don't know who the Buddha is, then the person can observe their student's mind. The Buddha can observe their student's mind very closely, whereas if everybody knew who the Buddha was, they might be on their best behavior when they're around this person, and then the Buddha wouldn't be able to see the condition of the person's mind and then be able to provide them teachings to actually help them. So a Buddha can understand the condition of someone's mind very readily and then be able to offer that person teachings to be able to help them transform their mind and overcome the struggles and challenges that they're having. A Buddha has a deep practice of their own teachings. They're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. So if they're teaching right speech or right action or some other teachings like this, they're practicing those teachings. This is one of the ways that their students actually learn, is that a Buddha teaches through spoken words. Nowadays, a Buddha would have books and other things like this, but a Buddhist teaches through their spoken words, but they also teach through their actions, the way that they interact in the world. Their students would be able to observe the same teachings that they're teaching in order to get to enlightenment. Their students would be able to observe that the Buddha is actually practicing those actual teachings. Because as an enlightened being and having eliminated the pollutions of the mind, a Buddha would be practicing the same teachings that they're actually teaching. So that's one of the ways that a Buddha helps their students get to enlightenment, is by being a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings, so that other people can observe what it means to be enlightened and then actually practice those teachings and transform their own mind. So this is what a Buddha is. It's not a stage of enlightenment. It's an actual individual who is enlightened, but they got to enlightenment on their own without the help of teachers or guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing those teachings, helping countless people get to enlightenment. They preserve their teachings so that other people can get to enlightenment. And they have this profound memory. They have this ability to read people's minds. They also have this deep practice where they're a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. So this is what a Buddha is. Okay? Let's talk for a moment about the best ways to know that you're not enlightened, because we've been talking about enlightenment and what it is. Let's talk about what enlightenment isn't, because this is very helpful on your journey to enlightenment. One of the key things to know that you're not enlightened is you'll be experiencing conditioned feelings. Remember here, we're talking about those conditioned pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. An enlightened being is going to be experiencing unconditioned mental qualities, where this happiness, excitement, elation in the unenlightened state, it's conditional. It's based on some conditions, so therefore it's temporary. But by the time you get to enlightenment, you're just always happy. It's unconditional happiness. It doesn't matter what's happening in your life, despite what's going on in the world, you can still maintain your happiness and your joy in the enlightened mental state. So you wouldn't be experiencing these conditional feelings. But in terms of the happiness, because sometimes people say, hold on, I'm not going to be happy when I'm enlightened. Yes, you're going to be very happy. You're going to be very joyful, but it's going to be unconditioned joy and unconditioned happiness. But you won't also be experiencing these painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. And then another way to know that you're not enlightened is if you have a craving, desire, attachment, a longing, a yearning to tell people that you're enlightened, you're not yet enlightened. So one of the easiest ways to know that somebody is not enlightened is that they will tell you they're enlightened. So if somebody comes around and starts bragging that they're enlightened and they're boastful and arrogant and talking about how enlightened they are, they're not enlightened. They still have conceit. They still have arrogance. They still have pride. So if you went around telling people that you're enlightened, you're not enlightened. You don't need to tell people you're enlightened. If your mind's enlightened, your mind's so peaceful and joyful, you don't need to walk around and brag to people and tell people you're enlightened. You don't need to put it on your Facebook page, right? You don't need to call up mom. Hey, mom, by the way, guess what? I'm enlightened. Can you believe that? It's so amazing. The mind is so peaceful. An enlightened being is not going to be doing that, right? Just enjoy your life, have fun, be peaceful and joyful. So if you're wanting to tell people that you're enlightened, then you know that you're not enlightened. And then the last thing is that if you're not enlightened, you're going to be experiencing complacency, a lack of motivation, a lack of enthusiasm. You might sit around and just be like bored and lonely and just, I don't know what to do. I'm so bored. I'm so lonely, right? You're complacent, lethargic, kind of feeling dull. This is because the mind is unenlightened. So an enlightened being is going to have enthusiasm. There's going to be a certain amount of initiative or vigor in the mind where you're willing to do something, but you also know how to relax and rest as well. So if there's any complacency in the mind or dullness or lethargic, then you know that the mind is not yet enlightened. And I think this is everything. I have the 7 factors of enlightenment in here, but I only typically go and teach that if you guys are interested in learning what that is. So let me see if you guys have any questions on anything that I'm sharing so far. This is about what enlightenment is. The 7 factors of enlightenment are more to help you understand how to get to enlightenment as part of one of the teachings, but I only usually share that if students are really interested in understanding more about it. So if you guys have questions on anything that I've shared so far, or if you would like to learn about the 7 factors of enlightenment, just let me know and I'll keep teaching. So you guys can ask questions here, or you guys can ask questions online as well. Okay, we've got some questions coming in here online. I need to take the microphone off so I can see what they are. My eyes are not so strong anymore. Okay, Brenna is asking, my question, I was taught Vipassana meditation in Thailand at a temple. When I search online, I keep reading it originated from the Buddha, but you said he did not practice this form of meditation. Do you know how or why Vipassana originated? The temple practiced Theravada-based Buddhism, which, as I understand, is based on early Buddhism, so I am confused. Okay, and then you have a question about the fetters after this. Okay, so I don't typically say that the Buddha didn't practice Vipassana meditation. I haven't seen anywhere in the original source teachings that Vipassana is mentioned. You won't see in the Pali Canon that the word Vipassana is actually used. What I understand Vipassana to be, and I've never actually taken a Vipassana retreat or gone and learned Vipassana, what I understand it to be is that they do a certain amount of breathing mindfulness meditation for about 3 days. Then they do body scanning for the other 7 days of their retreat, and maybe some metta meditation or loving kindness meditation as well. This body scanning that it sounds like they're doing is developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness, from what I understand. So in order to get to enlightenment, you would need to develop the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The way that the Buddha teaches to develop that is through breathing mindfulness meditation. But it seems like the people who are doing Vipassana, there's this body scanning aspect that I haven't seen anywhere in the Pali Canon. But in order to get to enlightenment, an individual would need to develop those 4 foundations, which one of them is awareness of the bodily sensations. So just a little bit of a clarification there for you, Brenna. And then let's see your next question here about the fetters. With regards to fetters, the Buddha saw his newborn son as a fetter and left him behind. I heard you read something he said to his son, probably from the Pali Canon. So I'm wondering, did he return to his family? Okay, so let me help you guys with this. Okay, so the Buddha had a newborn son before he left the palace. He was a prince destined to become a king, and he ends up leaving the royal palace, and he leaves his wife and his newborn son in the palace. He named his son Rahula, which means fetter in that language. And the son himself wasn't the actual fetter, because remember, when he named him fetter or Rahula, it was before he was enlightened and 100% knew what these things were. So the object, the son themselves, is not the actual fetter. It's the attachment, it's the longing, it's the yearning, it's the holding on to the individual that is the actual pollution of the mind. This is part of the central desire, where the mind is holding on to an individual, wanting them to be permanent. So if you grieved or you had misery or sadness when somebody dies, that's because the mind's craving permanence. You're wanting grandma and grandpa to be permanent, or mom or dad, or brothers and sisters. We oftentimes think that love is what's causing the mind to grieve or be sad at a funeral, but it's actually not love. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. But what's causing the mind to grieve is not that. That doesn't cause the mind to grieve. What causes the mind to grieve is the mind's holding on, it's attached, it's wanting grandma or grandpa to be permanently healthy and permanently in the world. And when you're confronted with this impermanence, realizing that they're not permanent, then the mind grieves because you're holding on to grandma and grandpa. So the same thing is true about a son or a daughter, husbands, wives, people like this in your life. You might hold on and cling to an individual. So the Buddha named his son Rahula, which means fetter, because he understood in the unenlightened state that his mind was holding on and clinging to his son. But by the time he left and went on this 6-year journey and got to enlightenment, ultimately he does end up coming back to that area where his family was. And his wife ends up ordaining with him. His son ends up ordaining. His mother, which was actually his stepmother, because his mother died 7 days after his birth, and it was his aunt, essentially, who was his stepmother. These individuals and others, like cousins and brother-in-laws and people like this, would ordain with the Buddha and become a student and actually get to enlightenment. So much so that his father came to the Buddha and begged and pleaded with him to stop ordaining people from the royal family, because he didn't want the royal family to fall apart, because he was attached to having the royal family stay intact permanently, not realizing that the royal family was impermanent. So the Buddha did come back to that area and he interacted with his family and his son. So you can get to enlightenment while having children and having a life partner. You don't have to go away and give up every worldly possession that you ever have in order to get to enlightenment. That's one way of progressing towards enlightenment is getting ordained, but you don't have to ordain in order to get to enlightenment. The teachings of the Buddha are very different than like maybe Jesus Christ teachings. If you've learned Jesus Christ teachings, where people are typically taught to model their life after Jesus Christ and do exactly the same things that Jesus Christ did, the Buddha's teachings aren't that way because he's dealing with the mind. And there's different lifestyles. There's an ordained lifestyle and there's a household lifestyle. What needs to change is the mind. You need to uproot the pollutions out of the mind in order to get to enlightenment. And you can do that from a household life, but you can also do it from an ordained life as well. So the Buddha was ordained, of course. He wore robes and he shaved his head. He gave up his worldly life and worldly possessions. And that's one way that someone might choose to progress to enlightenment, but that's not required. You can live a household life and still get to enlightenment. You can even have a life partner. You can have children and other things like this. You just need to eliminate the 10 fetters that are in the mind. The Buddha had a son and he interacted with his son for the rest of his life. So that's how you know that an individual, you can have a relationship without being attached. Oftentimes the unenlightened mind doesn't understand how to have a relationship and not be attached. That the only thing the unenlightened mind knows is attachment, because we grow up with our parents, our brothers, our sisters, boyfriends and girlfriends, and we start clinging to these relationships and we hold on to them so tightly that we don't know how to function in the unenlightened state through non-attachment. It's learning how to love without attachment. And this is part of what you need to learn on the path to enlightenment in order to get to enlightenment. So you can experience having a life partner or children if somebody would like to have children, or live a single life in the household life and still get to enlightenment. Enlightenment is available to all people. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what nationality, what sexual orientation you have. You can get to enlightenment if you're able to learn, if you're able to reflect on those teachings, to independently verify them, and you're able to practice the teachings. Everybody can get to enlightenment. You'll hear some people tell you that women can't get to enlightenment. You'll hear some people tell you that someone who prefers same-gender relationships can't get to enlightenment. You'll hear people tell you that if you live in a household life, you can't get to enlightenment. This is untrue. Everybody can get to enlightenment. It's based on the condition of your mind and training your mind. And an individual who's a female, or an individual who's a household practitioner, or someone who prefers a same-gender relationship, everybody's mind functions the same way. There's different unique things in each individual person's mind, but the way that it functions in terms of the natural laws of existence that the Buddha explains in these 10 fetters, it's the same thing. So that's why anybody and everybody can get to enlightenment. If somebody has a traumatic brain injury where their mind isn't functioning in the way that they would be able to learn, reflect, and practice teachings, this individual is going to need to get into a new existence in order to get to enlightenment, or they might get enlightened at death. But anybody who's able to learn, reflect, and practice would be able to cultivate their mind and get to enlightenment. It doesn't matter your gender, your sexual orientation, whether you're a household practitioner or an ordained practitioner, all these individuals can get to enlightenment. And you can even have a life partner and children as well, as I mentioned. So that should help you there, Brenna. Okay, you're welcome. Pleased to help you. Are there any questions here in the temple, or any more online here? Okay. Well, I guess you guys have learned enough that nobody's asked about the 7 factors of enlightenment, so I won't go into those, other than to just share with you guys that the 7 factors of enlightenment aren't to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened. They're tools to fine-tune the mind. And I teach these at various times in various courses and retreats. They're to help you go in and fine-tune the mind. Some people think that they're actually to determine if you are enlightened, because they're called the 7 factors of enlightenment. But what they're doing is helping you to fine-tune the mind, to bring it out of like a sluggish state into the middle, or to bring it from an excited, elated state into the middle. So as you get closer and closer to needing to know those particular teachings, I will share them with you guys on your journey to enlightenment. And I have them in the book series, and I have them in other courses and classes and programs that I teach. So I just have it in here in case somebody would like to go deeper into that. So what I'll do is just in class by inviting you guys to our future classes and courses and retreats. Next Sunday, I'm going to be teaching chapter 4, which is the Four Noble Truths, Establishing Right View. This is where you're going to learn about what's causing your mind to be angry and frustrated and all these other discontent feelings, and then how to actually eliminate it. So we'll be talking about the very first beginning teaching. Once the Buddha got to enlightenment, the Four Noble Truths was his very first teaching. This is a foundational teaching that you would need to know in order to have a breakthrough to understanding what's causing your discontent feelings, so that then you can actually eliminate them. As long as you don't know what's causing your discontent feelings, you won't ever be able to eliminate them. So you'll just continue to be angry and sad the rest of your life. But if you would like to eliminate those feelings, you can practice and understand the Four Noble Truths, and that's what will help you to have a breakthrough to understanding what's causing the discontent feelings and how to actually eliminate them. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to be teaching here as well as part of the group learning program. I'll be teaching the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots. These are the 3 high-level problems in the unenlightened mind. And then tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching here at the temple, starting a 5-day course called The Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. each day, if you guys are interested to get more in depth with the teachings of the Buddha and start discovering the teachings that it's going to take to be able to train your mind and escape the discontent feelings. So thank you all, whether you're attending here at the temple or you're online. Thank you for deciding that today is a day you would like to learn the teachings of the Buddha and dedicating some time to training and understanding the wisdom of the Buddha, because this is the very best thing that you could ever do for yourself, for those close to you, and all of humanity. Because as you become more and more peaceful, you'll be causing less and less harm in the world. And this is really wonderful for you, those close to you, and all of humanity. So thank you very much. We'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.